So picture this. You are standing right in the middle of a super bustling airport concourse.
Oh, I can already feel the stress.
Right. The departures board is flipping, announcements are just echoing off those massive high ceilings, and you are gripping your boarding pass.
Okay, I'm there.
Now, I have a question for you, the listener, that sounds incredibly simple, like dangerously simple, actually. But it effectively splits the human race right down the middle.
It really does.
Would you rather be taking this exact trip completely solo or, with your entire family?
That is the million-dollar question.
Exactly. Are you walking toward absolute peace and autonomy? Or are you willingly walking into chaos, noise, and let's be honest, a little bit of emotional damage?
It's basically the ultimate travel Rorschach test. Welcome to today's deep dive, by the way.
Yes, welcome. And the wildest part about this whole psychological divide is that the most profound breakdown we found on it didn't even come from a therapy journal or a sociological study.
No, not at all. It came from a transcript of a language learning show.
Yeah, it's called Speak English with Class.
Which is so funny because they were ostensibly just teaching vocabulary through conversation, but they accidentally delivered this absolute masterclass in human psychology.
They really did.
Yeah.
Specifically regarding how we navigate autonomy versus collectivism.
Right. So our mission today is to look way past the literal suitcases and the hotel reservations.
We are going to use this unexpectedly brilliant source material to figure out what your travel preferences actually reveal about your baseline emotional needs.
Because it's not just about sightseeing.
No, we want to understand your tolerance for chaos, your relationship with isolation, and the actual neurological mechanisms behind how you build memories.
The choice you make at that departures board says an awful lot about who you are. And more importantly, it reveals who you desperately need to be in this specific season of your life.
Exactly. It exposes whether you are currently starved for sensory deprivation or if you are craving the messy gravity of other human beings.
Okay, let's unpack this solo travel thing first, the me trip.
Let's do it.
So the source material paints this incredibly vivid, almost intoxicating picture of the sheer freedom of traveling alone.
Oh, it sounds amazing. You wake up when you want. You eat exactly when you want.
You walk exactly where you want to walk. You're basically operating with zero friction.
Right, because there is no committee.
Yes. That's the specific phrase the source uses, and it just hits the nail on the head. No committee.
I love that phrase.
Yeah.
Because you are completely free from the cognitive load of managing other people's emotional states.
You don't have a travel committee taking a vote on whether it's time for lunch yet.
Or debating if the group's collective blood sugar is getting too low to visit another museum.
Exactly. There's no one asking, are you sure? Every 20 minutes.
And the beauty of this is how it allows for complete, unadulterated spontaneity.
The source describes this wonderful scenario where you are just wandering down the street, and your itinerary is so wonderfully loose.
You could just decide to turn down a narrow cobblestone alley simply because the light looks beautiful right then.
Or, you see a tiny cafe and you decide on a whim that this is where you are having breakfast.
No debate. No checking 5 other places on Yelp first.
Right, just to make sure the vegetarian, the picky eater, and the coffee snob are all equally satisfied. You just walk in.
What's fascinating here is that you are starring in your own indie film at that point.
Oh, totally. You have main character energy.
The emotional arc of that freedom starts out feeling incredibly cinematic. You have this very cool, independent, I follow my own compass vibe.
You might stop and sit by the water for 2 hours, doing absolutely nothing.
And it feels like a radical act of self-care. You own the day completely.
But the source is very quick to point out the sharp, double-edged sword of this total ownership.
Yeah, because total freedom demands total responsibility.
Okay, let's unpack this. If you're listening to this on your commute right now, you might be thinking, man, I would kill for a solo trip to Paris just to have zero responsibilities.
I know I've thought that.
But taking a solo trip is actually exactly like being the sole founder of a startup company.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. As the sole founder, you have 100% creative control over the vision. You want to pivot the company. You pivot.
You want to sit by the Seine and eat a croissant. You sit.
Exactly. But when the servers crash at 2 in the morning,
there is no IT department to call.
There is no co-founder to blame for the bad code. It's all on you.
You suddenly become the CEO, the lead planner, the primary navigator,
the customer support team,
and the bewildered intern all rolled into one person.
The source captures this beautifully by describing the exact moment You become the confused tourist standing in front of the wrong train platform.
With exactly 4% battery left on your phone.
Yes. And Google Maps has suddenly become, in their words, mysterious.
Mysterious. That is the exact moment the cinematic indie film turns into a survival documentary.
Adulthood is just standing there looking at you, crossing its arms and saying, okay, then show me.
So true. And the psychological mechanism at play here is self-efficacy.
Because in our normal lives, we operate with massive safety nets.
Right? We have partners, coworkers, predictable routines. We know our way around town.
Taking a solo trip rips all those training wheels off. It forces your brain into a state of acute problem solving without any external scaffolding.
When you figure out that delayed bus schedule in a language you barely speak,
Or you navigate back to your hotel without GPS.
you are building what the source calls quiet confidence.
I really like that term, quiet confidence.
It's not the loud, boastful, look at me, I'm an invincible explorer kind of confidence.
No, it's the quiet internal realization that you can actually catch yourself when you fall. You are capable of navigating your own minor disasters.
And that realization fundamentally alters your self-perception.
It does. But we have to examine what happens when the sun goes down.
Oh, the nighttime shift.
Yeah, the source points out a massive, almost jarring emotional shift that occurs in the evening.
During the day, the sensory overload of a new city, the architecture, the crowds, the museums, it acts as a buffer.
It masks the solitude. Your independence feels empowering.
But at night, that sensory input drops completely off a cliff, and the silence actually changes texture.
It goes from feeling peaceful to feeling heavy, isolating even.
You are sitting at a restaurant for dinner. You look around the room and you see families talking over each other.
Friends laughing at an inside joke.
A couple sharing food across the table.
Yeah.
And suddenly your little two-top table feels like an island.
The source has this hilarious but genuinely heartbreaking image of the solo traveler.
Oh, looking down at their drink.
Yes. Treating this poor little glass of juice like it is personally responsible for carrying the entire conversation.
It's so sad, but so accurate. The waiter suddenly becomes incredibly emotionally important to you just because they are a point of human contact.
And this nighttime isolation acts as a highly honest emotional audit.
Because stripping away the distractions of daily life forces you to confront your baseline emotional state.
Right. When you are sitting there alone, feeling that specific, hollow type of quiet, it forces your brain to process exactly what kind of company you actually miss.
It teaches you what kind of warmth matters to you when you can't just scroll on your phone or bury yourself in work.
Now, that uncomfortable mirror of isolation is exactly why so many of us run in the complete opposite direction.
We crave the we trip, the family vacation.
We willingly walk into the chaos because we think the noise will save us from our own thoughts.
But as the source points out, that noise comes with a totally different psychological price tag.
Oh, a huge one.
Yeah.
Family travel tests an entirely different set of human survival skills.
The transition from total autonomy to total collectivism is a massive shock to the system.
The source sets the scene perfectly for this, too. 6 people, 4 overstuffed suitcases,
One wrong turn out of the airport.
and someone in the back seat loudly announcing that this is definitely not the road they told you to take.
And from the ashes of that chaos, a supreme leader emerges.
The travel manager.
Every family trip has one. The person who suddenly wields absolute dictatorial power at the airport terminal.
Simply because they are holding all the passports.
Yes. Their vocabulary devolves into single syllables. Bag, water, move, gate.
It is a complete inversion of the solo travel reality.
On a solo trip, your internal monologue is asking, where am I going today?
But on a family trip, the questions are entirely external and logistical. Where is the correct charger?
Who ate the emergency snacks?
Why are we stopping for the bathroom again when I explicitly asked everyone before we left the hotel?
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. I have to push back hard on the romanticization of this chaos.
Okay, go for it.
The source talks about the intense need to negotiate everything. Like, trying to pick a restaurant with 6 hungry people isn't just a discussion.
No, the source literally calls it an international crisis.
Right. You've got one person who demands authentic local food, one who refuses to eat anything unfamiliar.
And one who claims they aren't hungry but will inevitably steal half the fries from everyone else's plates.
Exactly. So if you spend 40 minutes standing on a street corner negotiating dinner, and by the time you finally sit down, everyone is too physically exhausted and irritated to actually enjoy the meal.
Yeah.
Is that really a vacation? Because from an efficiency standpoint, that sounds like a nightmare. It sounds like mandatory corporate team building, just in a different time zone.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you are looking at this entirely through the lens of modern efficiency.
Well, yeah, time is money.
But that is exactly the trap the source warns about. We are so conditioned by our daily lives to optimize our time,
To find the highest rated restaurant instantly, to take the fastest route.
to curate a perfectly frictionless aesthetic experience. We evaluate a vacation success by how much we consumed or achieved.
Right.
But family travel is fundamentally not a geographical experience. It is a social experience. The friction you're calling a nightmare is actually the entire point.
Wait, you're saying the 40-minute argument over pizza is the point of the trip?
Yeah. The requirement to navigate that argument is the point. That mandatory team building you mentioned. It demands active ego depletion.
Oh, wow.
It forces you to put the collective we ahead of the autonomous I.
So when you have to completely scrap your meticulously planned afternoon museum tour because a child is having a sensory meltdown.
Or when you have to slow your walking pace to a crawl because an older parent simply can't handle the stairs.
You are forced to be considerate.
Exactly. You are exercising empathy muscles that often atrophy in our hyper-individualistic daily routines.
Okay, so you're saying the metric for a successful day completely shifts.
It has to.
You throw the laminated, color-coded itinerary out the window,
Yeah.
and you measure success by connection rather than conceit.
Precisely. The source material captures this with a line that is genuinely profound. They say solo travel follows your mood, family travel trains your heart.
Trains your heart. That's a brilliant way to frame it.
You eventually realize that the slower, highly inefficient moments, adjusting to someone else's rhythm, waiting on a bench while someone rests, compromising on the restaurant, they become the actual purpose of the trip.
And you see the results of that training in the neurology of how these trips are remembered?
Oh, the memory formation part is fascinating.
The source makes this beautiful, stark distinction between the two types of memories. Solo trips create what they call journal pages.
Right, private memories. They are deep, they are quiet, and they are inherently untranslatable.
It's that specific feeling you had watching a sunset over a strange city. Or the sense of peace you felt drinking coffee on a balcony.
You can show someone a photo of it, but you can never actually transmit the emotional weight of that moment to another human being.
They belong entirely to you. But family trips create shared stories.
And human neurology uses heightened emotional states, even annoyance or frustration, as the primary building block for long-term collective memory.
It's rarely about the beautiful sunset. It's about, remember when Dad forgot the adapter and we blew the fuse in the entire hotel?
Yes. Or, to go back to your efficiency nightmare, remember when we stood on that street corner and argued for 40 minutes about tacos versus pizza, and then the skies opened up and it started pouring rain?
In the moment, that rainstorm and that argument trigger a massive spike in cortisol. It is intensely stressful.
But give it a year, or 5 years. The brain smooths out the acute stress, but it retains the shared vulnerability.
That miserable 40 minutes becomes the legendary memory that everyone laughs about at Thanksgiving for the next decade.
It becomes part of your family's unique language. The messy, inefficient parts are actually the emotional glue.
So we have these two absolute polar opposite extremes.
Right.
On one side, the sensory deprivation, the quiet confidence, and the private journal pages of the solo trip.
And on the other side, the sensory overload, the chaotic shared storytelling, and the heart training of the family trip.
The obvious question for you listening right now is, how do you choose? Why do we violently gravitate toward one or the other at different points in our lives?
Well, the source addresses this beautifully by validating a very common, very confusing psychological state, the feeling of being actively torn between the two.
Having your foot on the gas and the brake at the exact same time.
Yes. Part of you desperately wants to disappear into a remote, quiet mountain town with absolutely nothing but a thick book and a black coffee.
You want to speak to no one.
But a competing part of your brain genuinely yearns for the chaotic noise of a hotel room packed with 3 loved ones arguing over what time to leave for the airport.
You are craving both because they answer completely different emotional deficits.
Your choice of travel style is really just a diagnostic tool for your current season of life.
The text boils this down to 2 defining diagnostic questions.
First, right now, in this exact moment of my life, do I need peace or do I need people?
And the second, highly practical question. Do I currently possess the baseline emotional energy required to negotiate restaurant choices with 7 relatives?
That is the capacity check, because sometimes your nervous system is screaming, please give me silence, I am overstimulated.
And other times, perhaps after a long period of remote work or personal isolation, your heart is whispering, please do not leave me alone with my own thoughts right now. So what does this all mean? The way I see it, you can look at these travel choices exactly like a diet for your current emotional state.
Oh, a diet. I like that.
Think about it. Sometimes you've been surrounded by so much noise, so many demands from your boss, your kids, your friends, that you desperately need the clean, quiet, restrictive detox of a solo trip.
A detox,
You
yeah.
need to reset your mind, flesh out everyone else's opinions, and just figure out what your own internal voice sounds like again.
It acts as a necessary psychological cleanse. You are starving yourself of external input so you can digest your own thoughts.
Exactly. But you cannot live on a restrictive detox diet forever. It just isn't sustainable.
Right, eventually you need actual caloric sustenance.
Sometimes you need the heavy, noisy, messy, carb-loaded comfort food of a family vacation to feed your soul.
The comfort food. That's perfect.
You need the warmth, the friction, and the shared calories of those inside jokes and group memories to feel anchored to the world.
That is a fantastic analogy, and the source explicitly warns against cementing yourself into one identity, too.
Like you don't have to be just the solo traveler or just the family vacationer forever.
The healthiest psychological approach is to strike a dynamic balance, to know how to read your own internal dashboard and make room for both.
Because your life changes, your stress levels change, and your capacity for compromise changes.
The text summarizes this with a perfect metaphor. They say a solo trip gives you air, while a family trip gives you warmth.
You absolutely need air to breathe, but you need warmth to survive. You can't have a fire without both.
This raises an important question, though. The ultimate takeaway from analyzing these two travel styles.
What's that?
Well, a solo trip fundamentally strips away the titles you carry, parent, employee, spouse, friend, and asks the terrifying question, who am I when I am entirely alone?
It tests your individual structural integrity.
Exactly. But a family trip looks at the collective and asks, who are we when we are together?
How do we function under pressure? How do we navigate competing needs? And how do we love each other through the inevitable friction?
Both of those questions are absolutely vital to living a well-rounded, examined life. The best traveler isn't the one who rigidly clings to the exact same type of trip every year.
No, the best traveler is the one who understands their own psychology a little better each time they pack a bag.
Well said.
So to bring this all together for you listening right now, whether you are naturally drawn to the absolute autonomy of navigating a foreign transit system by yourself,
Or you thrive in the chaotic, noisy, emotional damage of a multi-generational group vacation.
your preference isn't just a quirky personality trait. It is a mirror. It reflects your current emotional bandwidth.
Do you need to exercise your independence and self-reliance right now, or do you need to actively exercise your capacity for empathy and compromise?
It all boils down to listening very closely to what your current season of life is demanding of you.
Definitely.
And that brings me to a final provocative thought I want to leave you with today. Something for you to mull over after this finishes playing.
Okay, let's hear it.
We spent this entire time talking about packing suitcases, crossing borders, and checking into hotels.
Right.
We established that a solo trip trains your independence, and a family trip trains your heart. But what happens if we apply this exact same psychological lens to our normal, mundane daily lives?
Oh, taking the philosophy without taking the flight.
Precisely. Without even leaving your zip code.
Hmm.
How often do you consciously designate solo days versus family days in your standard weekly routine?
That's a great question.
Do you intentionally carve out a few hours on a weekend to be the CEO of your own afternoon, wandering your own city without a committee, just to build and maintain that quiet confidence?
And conversely, do you actively lean into the messy, noisy, inefficient negotiations of a family day at home?
Right. Recognizing the friction not as a massive inconvenience to your schedule, but as vital, necessary training for your heart.
Are you making sure you strike a balance between getting enough air and getting enough warmth on a random Tuesday?
That is the real challenge. It's a fascinating way to look at your calendar and your relationships.
It really is.
So, as you go about the rest of your day, are you currently seeking peace and autonomy? Or are you ready for a little noise and emotional damage? Think about what kind of trip your heart actually needs right now. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.